In this video, we will be looking at different techniques to graph linear equations. The first technique is using a table of values. Now in our table of values, we are going to have an x value column and a y value column. You are the one that chooses your x values. Here we have some chosen already for us, and it's always a good idea to choose some negative numbers and some positive numbers just to give you a better idea of what the relation will look like. Now our equation in this example is 2x plus 4y equals 16. To find our y value, we just need to plug in our x values into the equation and solve for y. So our first x value is -2. Now we just need to replace x with -2 and solve. So 2 times -2 is -4, and then we keep our plus 4y equals 16. Now we need to move that -4 over to the other side, and it becomes positive. So 16 plus 4 is 20. And to get y by ourselves, we need to divide by 4. So 20 divided by 4 is 5. So our first y value in this table of values is 5. Now pause the video and finish the table of values and come back later to check what we have. Alright, now that we have our table of values filled out, we can plot our points. So each x value has a corresponding y value, and these are our coordinates. Alright, and once you plot your points, you will get a straight line. Now let's look at the next example. This is a little bit of a different example. Our equation is y equals the square root of x. Now let's try to fill out this table of values. If x is equal to -2, the square root of -2 is what? We can't really do that. We can't find the square root of a negative number. So our graph doesn't even exist when x is equal to -2. What about when x is equal to -1? Can we find the square root of -1? It's the same idea. We can't find the square root of that negative number, so our graph does not exist when x is equal to -1. Can we find the square root of 0? Well, that is actually just 0. And how about the square root of 1? The square root of 1 is just 1. Now if we try to find the square root of 2, you will get 1.4142135623. That's not an easy number to graph. So let's actually change that number. Let's get rid of the -2 and replace it with a number that is easily square rooted. So those are the perfect squares. Our next perfect square after 1 would be 4. The square root of 4 is 2. And then if we want to choose another number, like 9, the square root of 9 is 3. So these points we can now graph. This time our graph is actually not linear, but this is what the graph of the square root of x will look like. The next equation is y is equal to the absolute value of x. If you don't know what the absolute value is, please just scan this code to watch another video so you're able to finish your table of values, then graph your line. If you have done this correctly, all your y values are positive and your graph looks like this. Our next method is sketching a line using the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Now our equation in this example is 3x minus 4y minus 12 equals 0. So we need to find our x-intercept and y-intercept and plot those 2 points. So recall that in your x-intercept, y is always going to be 0. no matter what, because our x-intercept is on the x-axis. So if we substitute 0 in for y, then we will be able to solve for x. So our original equation is 3x minus 4y minus 12 equals 0. And just replace y with 0 and solve. Since 0 times negative 4 is 0, we're just left with 3x minus 12 equals 0. And if we bring that negative 12 over to the other side, it becomes positive. So you have 3x minus 12, equals 12. Now to get x by itself, we need to divide by 3, so x is equal to 4. And if we plot that x-intercept on the x-axis, our point is right there. Now to find your y-intercept, in this case, x is always 0 because we're looking for a point on the y-axis. So we replace x with 0 into our equation. I'm going to do that right away and just solve for y. So 3 times 0 is just 0, and we're left with negative 4y minus 12 equals 0. If we bring that negative 12 over to the other side, it becomes positive, and we need to get y by itself, so we divide by negative 4, so y is equal to negative 3. So that y-intercept is down here. And then we can connect the points and draw the line. Now our last method is using the slope and the y-intercept to sketch our equation. Now recall that we have a form of an equation called slope y-intercept form, and that is this right here. It tells us directly what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. M, the number in front of x, our coefficient of x, is our slope. And b, our constant number, is our y-intercept. Sometimes we might have to rearrange our equation so that it looks like y equals mx plus b. Our equation that we have here is 2x minus 5y minus 10 equals 0. So we will need to rearrange this equation. We're pretty much just solving for y, so we need to isolate y. To isolate y, we will need to move all the other terms to the other side of the equal sign. So we will be left with negative 5y equals negative 2x plus 10. And to get y by itself, we need to divide everything by negative 5. So y is equal to 2 over 5x minus 2. And that is our equation in slope y-intercept form. This means that our slope is 2 over 5 and our y-intercept is negative 2. We can plot our y-intercept. That's what you need to start with first. So our y-intercept is negative 2. And you're going to use your slope to find the next point. So remember, slope is equal to rise over run. So our rise is 2, so we need to go up 2, and our run is positive 5, so we're going to the right 5. And our next point is right here. You can use your slope to find more points, and so you can graph your line. And these are your 3 methods to graphing a line: your table of values, using your x and your y-intercept, or using slope and the y-intercept.